Hello my dear students, and welcome to today's session. The topic for the day is reproduction in plants, as you all can see on your screens also. So to start with, see children, first of all let me tell you what is reproduction. What is reproduction? Reproduction means to reproduce. When the parent reproduce the baby of the same kind, that is called reproduction. Okay. The process in which, if I talk about the process in which young ones of the same kind are produced by the parent or an individual, it is called reproduction. Okay. The parent is producing its baby or the young one as the parent is. Okay. That is called reproduction. So today we are going to study about reproduction in plants. Fine. To start with, plants are capable of producing by three methods. Okay, they are producing by three methods. These are vegetative reproduction, asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay, they are producing by three methods. Okay, fine. First is vegetative reproduction, second is asexual, and third is sexual reproduction. Fine children, now we would be studying it in detail. Move to the next page. Asexual reproduction, if I talk about, in this type of reproduction, an individual is capable of reproducing by budding, spore formation or fragmentation. Okay, that means when this asexual reproduction is carried on, no male and female parent is required. Okay, one parent can go for the reproduction. Fine children. If I talk about vegetative reproduction, okay, in this type of reproduction, a new plant emerges from the cell, tissue or any other part of the parent plant. Vegetative parts, okay, be it leaf, be it branches, be it stem. Okay, fine children. In vegetative reproduction, you don't require germination from a seed. Fine children. Then if you talk about sexual reproduction, in this type of reproduction, there is a formation of seeds by fusion of gametes. Two individuals are needed to carry out sexual reproduction. The male and female gametes meet, fertilize and form a zygote or seed, and this zygote develops to form a new plant. See, I told you about asexual, only one single parent is required. In vegetative reproduction, the vegetative parts, that is the leaf, the branch, the stem, we can have the plant growth from there. Okay, but in sexual reproduction, two parents are required. One is male and the other one is female. Fine children. Now if I talk about asexual reproduction, you can see on your screens also now here. Asexual reproduction is defined as the process in which new individual plants are formed from a single parent. I told you just now, in asexual reproduction, only single parent, one parent is required. Fine. Three methods of asexual reproduction are budding, spore formation and fragmentation. Okay. Asexual reproduction is further divided into three parts. You can see on your screens also, that is budding, spore formation and fragmentation. Fine. If I talk about budding, what is bud? Buds are kali jise kehte hain, the flower which has not bloomed yet. Okay, that is bud. Okay, so in budding, in this type of asexual reproduction, in which of new organisms develop from the outgrowth of the parent plant to forms a bud, which later separates to form an individual plant. Okay, if there's a beautiful example for that, yeast plant is there. Yeast, okay, what does it do? This is the yeast plant. When it wants to reproduce, what happens? You can see this, a bud begins to form on parent cell. Okay, it begins to form, and then you can see it's a unicellular plant. Yeast is a unicellular, that means it has got only one cell, and you can see there's nucleus is also there. When this plant, yeast, wants to grow, what happens? It starts forming this projection. Okay, this is a bud, and when this bud is formed, the nucleus also develops over here. Okay, you can see further this has been separated. Now this is the parent cell and this is the daughter cell which has been separated, and it keeps on multiplying like this. Okay. So budding takes place in yeast cells. In this case, the formation of a bud takes place and grows while still attached to the parent cell. Okay. It is after only this growth the daughter cell separates from the parent cell. Fine, children. Now come to the next page, and I've told you about budding. Budding is when example for that was yeast plant. Whenever the yeast wants to reproduce, a small projection comes like this, which I have shown you just now on the screen. And what happens, as this plant is a unicellular plant, you cannot see, this is very minute, you cannot see with your naked eye. It has got one nucleus over here which I have shown you just now. So when this plant wants to reproduce, this projection is there, and when this full bud grows, what happens, that it has a nucleus also. The daughter cell which has developed from the parent cell has got a nucleus also. Fine, children. Now we will talk about spore formation. Okay, we will talk about spore formation. As you all can see on your screens also, spore formation takes place in many eukaryotic organisms like plants, algae and fungi. Some of the plants that undergo spore formation are moss and ferns. In this method, spores are formed that grow into individual new plants when the favorable conditions return. Spores are spherical shaped, thick walled reproductive bodies. They are stored in capsule of the plant in inert state. This actually helps the plant to overcome harsh and unfavorable conditions. Once conditions become favorable, the capsule bursts, releasing the spores. These spores then germinate to form plants. Okay, you must have seen ferns and mosses around you. Okay, they grow especially in the forest area, wherever the dampness is there. Jahan par bhi aapko damp places hogi, it will grow there. Okay, what happens whenever what is there? These spores, they are covered by a thick wall. Okay, why? In case the conditions are not favorable, it will not grow. But once the conditions are normal, what happens? This breaks and new plant starts growing from these spores. Fine, children. Now I'll tell you about the third one, that is fragmentation. Okay. Fragmentation is one of the most common asexual reproduction that takes place in algae. Let us see reproduction in Saprogia. It occurs in multicellular organism in which the body of an organism forms specific zones at which fragmentation occurs, and the body splits into fragments. Fragment means pieces. Here the plant is breaking into pieces. Each fragment grows into a new adult plant. Fragmentation occurs in organisms like centrobacteria, molds and lichens. Okay, I told you about budding. The buds are there, then spores, small holes are there, then fragmentation, the parts. It is the reproduction is taken from the parts of the plant. Fine, children. Now we'll talk about vegetative reproduction. Okay, I think this is clear to you all. Now you can see on your screens of vegetative reproduction. Okay, in this type of asexual reproduction, it is a type of asexual reproduction, means no two parents are required, only one single parent can have this. Okay, in this case, vegetative parts of a plant like roots, stems and leaves can be used for reproduction. Vegetative parts कौन से होते हैं? Leaves, I told you about roots, I told you about stems. From these three parts, vegetative reproduction can be done. Vegetative reproduction can take place naturally or can be carried out by artificial means. Okay, now it is a process in which a new plant is produced without the formation of spores or seeds. You do not need to have seeds for this vegetative reproduction. Whenever the seed is involved, that means it is a sexual reproduction, because there you would be needing two parents, one male and other female. But if I talk about vegetative reproduction or asexual reproduction, only one single parent is capable of reproducing its other kind. Okay. Now if I talk about natural means, now in this case there is no involvement of any artificial means performed by human beings. Vegetative parts like root, stems and leaf are used to carry out this process. Okay. Now you can see on your screens also what are the different vegetative parts. I told you just now about roots, so we will be studying about the roots now. Some plants have tuberous roots like carrot, radish, dahlia, etc. These plants store food in their roots. Children, have you seen the carrot? It's all swollen. Okay, the carrot grows under the ground and the root, it's all swollen because all the food is stored in that. Okay, when these two roots are planted in well prepared soil, it gives rise to adventitious root. These buds grow to form leafy shoots under favorable conditions. These leafy shoots are called slips. These slips are separated from the parent plant and sowed in the soil. It then grows to form a new plant. Fine. Now by using stem, children, you must have seen many plants, they grow by using its stem. If a very common example of it is, have you seen money plant in your houses? If you want to grow a money plant, you just take a small stem, put it in water or put in soil, it will start growing because the roots will develop from that part only. Fine. So some plants like oxalis and strawberry have a weak aerial stems. These stems run parallel to the ground, almost touching it. These horizontal stems are called runners or stolons. You can find these type of stems in strawberry also. So these horizontal stems here, you can see they are running parallel to the ground, and once what happens, the bud starts growing, again it will grow, have roots, then again it will further grow. Okay. At places where the stems touch the ground, adventitious roots are formed. Wherever the stem, it's touching the ground, okay, roots start growing from it. These roots grow into the ground and holds the plant into the soil. Okay. As the plant grows, it may be detached at places where there is an outgrowth of adventitious root. Once it gets detached from the parent plant, it grows into an adult plant and survives individually. Okay. By using stems, wherever these stem, the plants which grow by stem, what happens? They have very weak stem, and what happens? They run parallel to the ground. You can see they are running parallel to the ground, and wherever this stem touches the ground, it start growing over there. The roots comes out and you can detach it. Now it can grow into its own. Okay, it can grow into its own. Fine, children. Now the next one, bulb. See children, bulb. As you can see on your screens also, some plants have stems modified into bulbs that are short and arranged in a concentric circles around the stem. An example of a bulb is an onion. Okay, have you seen an onion? Pyaz. That is actually a onion is a modified stem. Okay, the bulb is where the plant stores its food. Okay, the bulb contains apical and lateral buds. These apical buds are used for next year's flowering shoot, whereas lateral buds give rise to new shoots. Okay. The shoot grows to form new plants and eventually develop bulb of their own. Children, this is a very beautiful example of a bulb. The onions, you must have seen the onions are fleshy. They are round sort of thing is there, and they have this, you can see all this is there, sort of things are there. These are concentric circles, okay, around the stem, and the bulb is where the plant stores its food. The bulb क्या होता है, इसके अंदर सारा food store होता है plant का. Fine children. Now the next one, tuber. Potato is aloo. Okay. Potato tuber is a modified stem that grows under the ground and stores food for the plant. It is swollen and has eyes and nodes on it. If you observe carefully, each eye bears many buds. These buds give rise to new shoots that grow into individual plants. See children, this is a potato. You can see on your screens, and it has got small eyes, okay, on it. You can see these eyes are there. Now what happens? You can cut this eye, okay, and plant in the soil. You can just put in the soil again. You after some days, after few days, what you will notice, more potatoes coming out, okay. And this potato is the modified stem again. It is swollen, okay, and it stores all the food of the plant. Fine children. Now come to the next page. Okay, rhizosome. Okay, now in some plants the stems grow horizontally into the soil. What is horizontally? This is vertical and this is horizontal. Okay, this way it is horizontal. In some plants the stem grows horizontally into the soil. It is capable of producing roots and shoots from its nodes. You can see the ginger plant. This is the rhizosome, which is swollen as it stores food. The old parts of the leaf form scales around the rhizosome. The lateral buds give rise to new rhizomes. Ginger and turmeric are common rhizosomes. Okay children, what happens? This is the ginger. Okay, it is in which form it is lying in the soil? It is in the horizontal form. Now what happens? It has got all scales on its body. You can see here these scaly leaves are there, and these are buds. Okay. Now the old parts of the leaf form scales around the rhizome. The old leaf, these are the scales are the old leaf. The lateral buds give rise to new rhizomes. And a beautiful example of is ginger and turmeric. Turmeric hoti hai haldi aapki. Okay. Then if we talk about corns. Okay. Some plants like the glandulars have short and swollen stems at the base. This swollen part is where the plant stores its food. Children, whenever the swollen part you will find in any plant, that means that is the food of the plant. It is called a corm. Each corm, when grown separately, forms a new plant. This is not corn, this is corms. Okay. So the swollen part is where the plant stores food, as I told you, and it is called a corm. Each corm, when grows separately, forms a new plant. Now a beautiful example of a plant which grows through leaves is bryophyllum. Okay, by using leaves. Some plants grow by leaves only. Some plants like bryophyllum and begonia have large leaves. These leaves grow outwards on their margins. These outwards are actually adventitious buds. These buds develop shoots and grow into new plants. They eventually fall from the main plant and start growing on its own as an individual plant. See children, this is a leaf of a bryophyllum. Okay, and you will see at this edge. Okay, new plants starts growing. Okay, once it is properly developed, once this plant is properly developed, it detaches from or it gets separate from the parent plant, and now it is capable of its individual growth. Fine. Now moving to the next page. Vegetative reproduction by artificial method. Okay, artificial means the man is helping now. Earlier it was taking place on its own, but now this vegetative reproduction is by artificial means. Artificial means the human being is involved in this. Okay. The method of vegetative reproduction in which artificial means are used to give rise to a new plant from the parent plant is called artificial vegetative reproduction. First is cutting. Okay, what happens in cutting? You must have seen a rose plant. Okay, and at times the gardener, the person who looks after your garden, or you can even, if you know the technique, you can also do this. What do? Cutting is done for the plants like rose, especially China rose, that is hibiscus. In this method, a part of the stem, root or leaf is cut from the parent plant. Okay, it is then planted in a suitable soil and watered. After some time, the planted part develops into a new shoot that grows into a whole new plant. What will see? This is a plant, rose plant. See, this is the rose plant. Okay, this is have different leaf, stems and all. What you will do, you will cut a part of the plant. Okay, you will cut it from here, and what you will do, you will put this part again in the soil. Okay, and after some time you will see that it has started growing, the root has developed and a proper shoot system is also developed. Okay, this is called cutting. Fine children. Now if I talk about grafting, what is grafting? Grafting is also done in plants like rose, mango. Okay, so grafting is done for plants like rose, mango, guava to develop a new plant with hybrid characteristics. Hybrid means better characteristics than the parent plant. Okay, this method involves the following step. First, a part of a plant with buds is taken. This is called the sickle. Another plant is taken, its stem is cut and slit into roots, with its roots keeping it intact in the soil. This is called stalk. Now what happens? You take a what do you do? You will take a part of a plant which has got bud. एक part आप लोगे plant का जिसके अंदर bud होगी. Bud means कली होगी. ठीक है? You will take that, and other plant what you will do? And this part which has a bud is called sickle. Okay? Now another plant is taken. After that you will go take another plant also. Its stem is cut and slit into roots. अब क्या करा हमने? See, you can see here also. The stem is cut and slit. You have put a cut over here. It's slitted. Okay, with its root keeping attached in the soil, means this part is all in the soil. Okay, this part is all in the soil. Now the sickle is placed on fitted into the slit of the stalk. Now what will you do? The part which you have cut. See. This part you have cut, and this is the other plant. You will penetrate, you will put this part over here in this plant which you have cut it. Okay, now the sickle is placed or fitted into the slit of the stalk. This arrangement is then firmly bound by or tied by a cloth. Now what will you do? You will put some cloth around it. Okay, this stalk supplies water and nutrients to the sickle. After some time, a new cell develops at the attachment site of the sickle and stalk. Its sickle eventually gives rises to shoots and develops into a whole new plant with characteristic of both the parent plant. Okay. Now what will happen, as we have done it to get a better breed hybrid? So what will happen? The plant which will grow from this, that means from the sickle and from the stalk, will be of new variety. Okay, it would be having both the characteristics of the plant which was cut and the plant on which it was fixed. Fine children. Now we will come to layering. Okay, layering is done for plants like grapes and bougainvillea. In this method, the stem of the plant is lowered such that it touches the soil. Now what happens? In which plant we are doing? We are doing it in plants like grapes and bougainvillea. Okay, they don't have a hard stem, they have soft and weak stems. What you will do? In this method, the stem of the plant is lowered in such that it touches the ground. Suppose this is a bougainvillea. Okay, now what will you do? You will bring the stem down so that it touches the soil. This is the soil, and what you are doing, you are putting it like this. This portion of the stem is then covered with the moist soil. Now once that it touches, you will be covering it with a soil. After some time, this stem develops roots. Once the root develops, the stem can be detached from the parent plant. It gives rises to shoots and then forms a whole new plant. Once what happens? You are covering the part of the stem with moist soil, and once the roots start developing, you can detach from the parent plant. Fine children. Now come to the next page. tissue culture. I told you about artificial क्या कहते हैं reproduction by different methods. Just a quick recap of that. Whatever I have told you just now, it is the first is I told you about cutting, second is grafting, third is layering, and now the fourth one is tissue culture. Okay. Now in this method, a growing tip of a plant is taken and put in a nutrient medium kept in test tubes. This nutrient medium helps in the development of roots. Once the root develops, then it is planted in a nutrient medium that helps in the development of shoots. Once the roots and shoots arise, these plants are planted in a suitable soil. They grow to form whole new plant. What will happen? You will take a growing tip, the part which is in growing form of a plant, and put in a nutrient medium. You can put in a test tube. This nutrient medium helps in the development of roots. First root will develop, and after some time the shoot will start developing. Okay. Once the root and shoot are there, you can plant that plant into the soil. Earlier it was in the test tube. Okay. Fine, children. Now, what are the advantages of vegetative reproduction? New plants grow very quickly from the vegetative parts. Okay. The new plants which are growing from through vegetative reproduction, they grow very fast. The offsprings are the exact copy of the parent plant. New varieties can be obtained in the offspring when desired. Okay. Disease free or disease resistant varieties of the plants can be grown. Okay. Now we'll talk about sexual reproduction. I told you in sexual reproduction, two parents are required. One is the male and the other one is female. Okay. So for sexual reproduction, two parents are required, one male and the other female. Each parent plant form gametes. The fusion of these gametes should take place to form zygote. This zygote then develops into a new organism. Wherever the plants, the sexual reproduction will happen in the plant with the seed of the plant. Okay. With the seed of the plant. In sexual reproduction, what is involved? The seed of the plant is involved. Fine, children. Now, flowers are the reproductive part of a plant. Stamen is the male part, whereas pistil is the female part. Okay. Flowers जो होते हैं, those are, that flower is known as the reproductive part of the plant. Okay. Now in the flower you will be finding stamen and pistil. Stamen is the male part and pistil is the female part. If a plant has both the male and female parts, it is called a complete or bisexual flower. In case some flowers do not have one of the reproductive parts, they either have the pistil or the stamen. Such flowers are called incomplete or unisexual flower. A flower which has got both the parts, that is the stamen and the pistil, it is called a bisexual flower or a complete flower, because all the process would be taking place within the flower only. But in case the flowers which do not have either of them, either pistil or stamen, those the reproduction would be incomplete. So they are known as incomplete or unisexual flowers. Fine, children. Now we'll talk about stamen. Stamen, as I told you, is the male part of the flower. So stamen is the male part of the flower. It consists of a long filament with an almost round structures at its tip. This is called anther. Okay, anther contain pollen grains inside it. Okay, क्या होता है ये stamen? एक male part होता है flower का, and it is a long filament. See, you can see in this diagram also over here. You can see over here also. See, the flower is there. What you will see, I told you about stamen. Where is the stamen? Here. See, stamen is the male part of the flower. It consists of a long filament and almost around its structure. It is called the anther. Here, you will find it here. You can see on your screens. This anther is here. Okay. Another anther contain pollens. You will be finding small dots are there, powdery substances that there, and that is known as pollens. Okay, those are the part through which the reproduction will take place. Okay, this is all powdery. You must have seen few plants, if you touch them, a sort of powdery thing is left on your fingers. Okay, that is the pollen grains. Now if I talk about pistils, pistil is the female part of the flower. Okay, pistil is the female part of the flower of the plant. It consists of long tube like structures called the style that joins the stigma and the ovary. The ovary is the solid part of the pistil, and at the base that contains the ovum. Stigma at the tip of the pistil is sticky part that helps attaching pollen grains. The pollen grain has to go into the, pistil is the female part and stamen is the male part, I told you. So these pollen grains have to enter, and pollen grains you will be finding on stamen. So this has to enter into pistil. So stigma at the tip of the pistil is a sticky part. It is very sticky, through which this pollen grains get stick. Okay. Now coming to the next page. Pollination. What is pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains. Okay, the transfer of pollen grains from anther to, from stamen to pistil. Okay, so the pollens are packed inside the anther. The pollens are the male gametes. They need to reach the ovum for fertilization to take place. The process in which pollen grains are transferred from anther to stigma is called pollination. क्या बोलते हैं उसको हम? Pollination. And pollination are of two types. One is self pollination and other one is cross pollination. Types of pollination: if pollination occurs between the anther and stigma of the same flower, it is called self pollination. If pollination occurs between the anther and stigma of different flowers, it is called cross pollination. Okay, there are two types of pollination, self and cross. Okay, in self it is the pollens are transferred from anther to the stigma of the same flower, but in cross they are transferred to another flower. Fine. Now there are different agents of pollination. Pollination क्या है? जो छोटे छोटे वो है pollens है, pollen grains है, it has to, the male part has to reach to the female part. Okay, so there are different agents of pollination. First is wind pollination. Okay, wind pollination. The pollens do not just come in contact with the stigma. They need agents like wind, water and insect to carry them to the stigma of the flower. First we will be studying about wind pollination. Okay, what happens in wind pollination? Wind pollination is brought by blowing wind. Whenever the wind blows, what happens? The pollen grains, they are carried away with the wind, because pollens are very light. Okay, when the wind blows, the pollen grains from the anther of the flowers are carried along with it. Okay, and wind pollination is helpful in flowers that have small or no petals. Okay, they either have very small petals, petals are the colorful part of the flower, or no petals at all. Without the petals, the anther and the stigma remain exposed to the blowing wind. The pollen carried by the winds comes and rests on the stigma. Thus pollination occurs. Example of it is wheat and corn. What happens in wind pollination? Whenever the wind blows, जब भी हवा चलती है, what happens? The pollens, it also gets blown away by the wind. Now in flowers which do not have petals, or the petals are very small, petals is the, I told you, is the colored part of the plant. What happens now? The pollens, they get stick on the stigma. Okay, and now the pollination starts taking place. Fine, children. Now second is insect pollination. You must have seen butterflies. There are many insects which keep on sitting on the flowers. What happens? Whenever they sit on that flower, the pollens, they get stick on the body. Now the butterfly, suppose they are, this is a garden. Okay, there are many flowers over here. Okay, what is happening now? The butterfly is sitting on it. Okay, once the butterfly sits on the flower, the pollens or get stick on its body. Now it is going from one flower to other flower, the other flower, like this it keeps on going, and what happens, the pollens they also get transferred with its body. Okay, so insect pollination occurs in flowers that have large colored petals. Okay, the insects come and sit on the petals to collect nectar. While doing so, the pollens get stuck on the hairy body. The insects then flies and sits on the other flowers. They rub against the petals, thus dropping the pollen stick on their body there. That I have already explained to you. Okay. Now the next pollination, the next type of pollination is water pollination. There are many plants which grow inside the water also, as you know. Like if I talk about lotus, water lily, they all grow in the water. So in some aquatic plants, pollination is carried out with the help of water. Water releases their pollens in the water. Flowers release their pollen in the water. The flowing water carries the pollen to the other flowers. What is happening? The water, when the pollens get mixed in the water is carrying the pollens with it. And what happens? Whichever flower is coming in its way, the pollens get stick on that flower. Fine, children? Now fertilization. We'll talk about fertilization now. You can see on your screens also. Fertilization. After pollination comes fertilization. After pollination takes place, the stigma secretes a sticky fluid. Okay, pollination के बाद क्या होता है? जो stigma होता है flower का, it secretes a sticky liquid. The pollen responds to this fluid and starts growing. The species of the flower will match with the parent plant. They form a long tube called the pollen tube. This pollen tube grows into a pistil, reaches its ovary. The male gamete then travels through this tube to the ovum and fuses with it to form zygote. This process is called fertilization. A zygote is formed as a result of fertilization. Okay, am I clear in this fertilization? Now seed formation. How is the seed formed in the plants? How is the seed formed in the plants? We will be studying now. Okay, see, once zygote is formed. What is zygote? Zygote, you must have seen. If I talk about a rose flower, okay, if I talk about a rose flower, you must have seen after the petals and all they fall, what happens? This is the swollen part. This is a zygote actually. Okay, the swollen part is the zygote. Now what is happening? Once the zygote is formed, the pistil and the stamen wither or fall off. I told you nothing would be left on the flower. Okay, जैसे zygote मोटा हो जाता है, this is the zygote. It is a swollen something sort of thing. All the petals and everything will fall off. Now in some plants the petals and sepals also falls off. The ovaries contain nutrients that supply food to the growing zygote. The zygote develops by cell division. How is it developing? By cell division. The walls of the ovules form a hard layer protecting the zygote within it. Once the hard layer formation form, the seed is mature. You must have seen this is very hard also. If you are going to touch the zygote, you will find it is somewhat hard. Okay. Now once the hard layer formation is formed, the seed is mature. A seed is a small embryotic plant covered by a hard layer. Seed hota kya hai? Okay, it has got a baby plant. Okay, seed is somewhat like this. Okay, you will be having a baby plant also inside it. Okay, now fruit formation. How is the fruit formation taking place? I told you about seed formation. Now it is about fruit formation. How the fruit is formed. Now you can see on your screens also. The walls of the ovary begin to swell once seed formation takes place. जब seed बन जाता है तो what happens? This ovary, it starts swelling. Swelling means it becomes fatter. Okay, it forms the fruit. The fruit may have one or more than one seeds inside it. Okay, and what does the fruit contain? Fruit also contain the seeds in them. Okay, there are many fruits which have many seeds in them. There are such fruits also which do not have any seed in it. Fine children? Now dispersal of seeds. How do dispersal of seeds takes place? If all the seeds of the plant fall at the same time, they will not get enough water and nutrients for their growth. Hence, seeds need to fall as far off places where water and nutrients are available in plenty. For seeds to fall at far off places, they need to be carried by wind, water or animals. The spreading of seeds to far off places or for germination is called dispersal of seed. If I talk about, this is a plant, okay, it has got all flowers and fruits and seeds. What happens when the seeds will fall over here at one place only? All the seeds will be scattered at one point. Now all the seeds are not getting enough condition to grow. Okay, few of them will grow, few of them will not grow. So in case we want proper growth of the plant, what we need to do? We need to have this dispersal of seed at far off places. Okay, so that all the seeds can have favorable conditions to grow. Okay, so the spreading of seed at far off places is called dispersal of seed, and it occurs by with the help of wind, water and animals. Fine children? Now next page. First is dispersal by explosion. How the seeds are dispersed. Okay, किस तरीके से dispersed होगी, means it will be carried by away. Okay, in this case the fruits burst open with such force that seeds inside it get scattered. When the seeds find favorable conditions, they start germinating. Seed of pea plant, lupin and balsam are dispersed this way. Beta, see, example of a very beautiful example of dispersal by explosion is pea plant. What happens? The pea plants, the seed, what happens? The fruit, okay, the fruit gets burst. पटक से एकदम burst होता है, जोर से burst होता है. What happens when it is bursting with force? What happens? The seeds which were inside that fruit, it will be carried far off, and wherever it will grow, once it gets favorable conditions to grow, it will start growing. Fine children? Now dispersal by wind. Some seeds have wings like structures or small hairs like tufts or threads that act like a parachute and carry them to far off places. When the wind blows, dandelion and maple seeds are dispersed in this way. Especially in summers, you must have seen in the air, you will be finding a small sort of this, like this would be in the air, and you try to sometimes catch it. Okay, a small like this would be there. Okay, I'll make it again for you. You can see this, especially in summers you will be seeing this is all everywhere it is blowing. So this is nothing but a dandelion. Okay, these seeds, they have a parachute like structure. When the wind blows, it starts blowing with the wind, and wherever the wind stops, it falls down, and if it finds proper favorable conditions for growth, it starts growing. Otherwise it keeps on moving with the wind. Fine children? Now dispersal by water. The next one is, I have already told you about dispersal by explosion, dispersal by wind. Now we will be doing by dispersal by water. Especially the aquatic plants, if I talk about, some seeds have a spongy coat that helps them float on water. For example, a coconut seed has a layer of jute like fiber that makes them light and helps them float on water. The seed gets washed up on some beach and start germinating where the favorable conditions are there. If I talk about coconut plant, it always grow on the water side. Okay, where on the coastal areas, where what happens when this fruit falls into the water, the water starts carrying the fruit. Okay, the fruit has seeds also, and the place wherever it finds suitable condition, it will stop over there and start germinating. Fine children? Now the last one is dispersal by animals. Children, there are many animals which graze. Okay, if I talk about cow, all grass eating animals are there. If I talk about insects also. There are few insects which sit on the flower and collects nectar. Okay, now see, dispersal by animals. Some animals eat fruit and throw the seeds elsewhere. Some have hairy bodies. When the animals rub against the plants, the seeds get stuck on their hairy body. The animals move to different places and the seeds may fall from their body anywhere. Animals like squirrels burrow their food under the ground and forget these seeds germinating when the conditions are favorable. There are many animals which eat also. What happens whenever they excrete, the seed also comes out. There are many animals which eat grass. What happens? They are that seeds, it gets stick on its body, and wherever these animals, they rub themselves, the seeds falls, and if the conditions are favorable, the plant will start going there only. Okay, so now there's a chart over here which is telling you about the difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay, you can see on your screens also, and I've told you about asexual reproduction. Only one parent is involved. Here both the parents are required. That means the male and female. Gametes are not involved. Here gametes are involved. Okay, plant parts are used to produce new plants. Now new plants arise from the existing parent through seeds. Here seeds is there. Sexual reproduction, what do you need? Seeds. Okay, no reproductive organs are required. Reproductive organs are needed. Newborn plants are similar to the parent plant. Okay, newborn plants are not exactly copy of the parent plant. Okay, fine children. Now germination of seed. The new topic is germination of seed. Seed कैसे germinate होगी? Until and unless it gets favorable condition. And what are the conditions? Air, water, sunlight and suitable temperature. Okay, these all things are required by a seed to germinate. Okay, you can see here also, the seeds that fall on the soil by dispersion need sufficient water, sunlight, nutrients to grow. The growth of root and shoot from the embryo inside the seed is called germination. Okay, what is germination? The growing of the plant from a seed. Okay, now I have told you what all proper conditions are required for germination. First is sunlight, temperature, proper temperature, air and water. Fine children, wherever the seeds find all these conditions, it will start germinating into a new plant. Fine children, I hope the chapter is very much clear to you. So, was the chapter interesting? Do read it out again and again so that whatever problem you have, it can be solved there and there only. Okay, that's all for today. Have a nice day.